So, welcome to Equipped. We're still in season 2, and this is the second episode.
Whoop, whoop.
And whoop whoop indeed. And we are, I think, going to stay on a similar vibe as the last episode, where we talked a little bit about artificial intelligence. It was highlighted that I say artificial intelligence.
You went very Norfolk.
I'm not going to apologise for that. I'm
very
from
Norfolk.
Norfolk. So, it's artificial intelligence or artificial
We're
intelligence.
adding subtitles for the Norfolk twang.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, we talked a little about the digital world we live in right now. And Harry, I know you've been looking at some of those areas of how the workplace is changing. And I have also. And I think you've got views on this as well.
Have I?
Have you? Okay. So I think we want to dive into a little bit about that changing workplace environment and how organizations might be managing that or not in some cases. And one of those things I think that hits all of us is remote working. Now, we're all in the office or studio in this case at the moment, but we do some elements of remote working, right? Sometimes we work out there, and certainly when we're talking to our students or clients, we're often doing that remote communication. But what kind of impact do we think that change in workplace dynamics and people more often working from home or small offices and that kind of, what do they call it, cooperative workspaces and those kinds of things, hot desking and those kinds of things, how is that changing the way we work? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the obvious way to think about it for me was back in COVID when we were all forced to work from home. And I guess you've got flexible working and you've got working at home. The working at home thing was something I really struggled with. So I didn't enjoy it from just a productivity perspective, but also like an ideas generating perspective. So I think what we really enjoyed here in the office was our ability to come together and kind of throw around ideas and see what sticks. And I found it really difficult not having that when we were working from home during COVID. So I'm really not a fan. Yeah. But I know that's quite an unpopular opinion to have.
Well, there's this whole digital platforms that are based around collaborative working that are digital, right? So, and we've tried these, right? We've tried different boards and whiteboards and various different subscription tools and things to try and get that same vibe as being in an office and working collaboratively. But nothing seems to work for us in particular better than being together. And I mean, that's, we like human communication. We're in that industry anyway. So I think we just have to deal with the way we prefer things, and it's all about preference, I guess. But there are some situations where you have to embrace that and make it work, I guess, in some organizations. What are your thoughts on remote working?
I've been wondering about causality and correlation. According to the quick, is the increase in mental health challenges connected to remote working? In other words, as the virtual working and the lack of social interactions and support and having a drink at the coffee machine or the water cooler to just oil the cogs of relationships and work, is losing that, as that being partly responsible for the increase in mental health challenges? Is a question. I don't know. I've tried to fish around, and there's a few pieces of research, but research is still catching up. And especially if you look at the challenges for management and leadership. So if you've got an organisation, you're a manager and a leader, and I was reflecting on this myself in preparation for this, where in parallel to the work at EIA, as you know, about 9 years ago, I was also running an organisation with 50 staff, and our CEO went off unwell as soon as the lockdown was announced, and I was the only one who could step in as CEO. So I went in for 6 months until we could find a replacement to manage the organisation. And so I picked up this hot potato of, shit, what do we do? It's the Boris saying, stay at home, you must stay at home. It wasn't an option, it was forced. So the challenges of that I've seen firsthand, with those staff, and some of the mental health issues that some of the staff struggle with, and that they came to work for a release. Some of them reported, I come here for a break. I enjoy my work. It's my function. I'm back at home. My partner also is working from home, and we've got the children not at school, and that is mayhem. And the stress and turbulence that's creating of having to live in that environment 24/7 is creating a lot of turbulence.
Yeah.
So then, as leadership and management, what do you do about that? So you've got stress for the individuals who are the casualties of being forced to work from home because of government policy in the UK and globally. And then second, you've got if I'm the manager or a departmental head, I can't use is everyone busy? Is everyone doing what they should be doing? Scan around the office anymore. I've got to build in new methodology to deliver the functions of the organisation. So you've got stress from both. And so that got me thinking a lot about the impact of emotional well-being, emotional health, emotional intelligence. Are the people who do better or do worse in our environment the more emotionally intelligent people or not?
And I think this plays into some research I was reading on remote working, and they were making comparisons between different leadership styles, being adaptive leadership and rigid leadership. And what we need now is adaptive leadership people, and they're the people that can recognise in the digital workplace we live in right now, they can recognise those impacts and adapt appropriately to make sure that their style is functioning and effective and appropriate for all staff members. And the things that they were looking at there, the two big elements that came out of that piece of research that had strong coefficients for impact on performance were collaboration came out at top with something like 0.4 beta coefficient, meaning that if you have a level of 1 in output, an extra 0.4, 40% essentially will increase if you have good collaborative teams. So that collaboration element that you were talking about, but how do you get that collaboration? The next factor that was the biggest consideration was emotional intelligence. So if you have emotional intelligence in an organization, then it typically goes hand in hand with better collaboration, but it also drives more adaptive leadership, because those people then have an ability to look out across the workplace and identify where they are, identify where everyone else is, and make those appropriate shifts and changes in line with the changing context of that digital workplace. So it was great to see that, and I think there was like 300 leaders included in that. So it's not, it's a decent sample, but could do with going wider and seeing if that's culturally the same around the world. But it was an interesting thing to look at, and that high adaptive leadership also then led on to higher levels of team performance as well. So you see in that knock on EI creating better adaptive leadership leading to more effective outcomes for the organisation and bringing more collaboration into the picture. So I think it plays into exactly what you were just saying there.
And it's just to add to that before we move off the evidence, there's a report, it's a dissertation. She did a PhD, and it's not been circulated, but if you search Scherer, SCHERER 2022, there's a thesis dissertation available on the web. You just search her name, 2022, and remote working and emotional intelligence. Just drop those into Google, and there's a great paper there which highlights the correlations and the impact of what the mental health levels were like correlated to the emotional intelligence. They used the Wang and Lee ability model to assess emotional intelligence, and the correlation between them was significant. And they also, some of the findings was about the skills of leaders managing those people, especially those who weren't emotionally intelligent. They needed to be emotionally intelligent to engage, empathise, build trust and rapport, so people felt included rather than excluded. Especially if you've got hybrids, so if you've got half the people in the office and half the people working from home, you've got to be careful not to treat the ones in the office better, because you're closer.
Yeah, and I think this plays into some of the things that we've talked about in the past with mental health, because we were looking into that mental health aspect, and yeah, I think it's clear if people don't have that contact. Yeah, talking about you don't like it, you don't like the fact that we're not speaking, we're not there to do that kind of across the desk, what do you think kind of thing.
Yeah.
That can lead to levels of isolation and that lack of togetherness and collaboration.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of software out there now that kind of enable you to collaborate remotely. But what you tend to see is people will do it within an echo chamber of the people they directly work with. One of the things Steve Jobs was adamant about when they were building the donut office was he wanted to kind of station the different workforces kind of in between each other, so you were forced to walk through different areas of the building past different teams, so almost have that water cooler chat that might generate fresh ideas between different ways people think and different ways people work. And I think remote working, the software's catching up to get us to the point of where, yes, we can still brainstorm working in completely different offices and stuff. But I do think it still keeps it contained, and there's just lack of that spontaneous chaos that you get in an office.
Yeah.
And I think the chaos should be encouraged more rather than being limited to, a chat thread between just the developers or just the recruiters or just, the salespeople. Is get them all speaking together and see if there's fresh ideas that can come up from them all kind of throwing things at the wall.
I guess it's also interesting because one of the things that we look at, which is very much linked to emotional intelligence, is that concept of psychological safety. And when you're in an office and you have face-to-face contact, is there more chance that you're actually going to say something or bring something up?
Yeah, I think 100%.
Than when you're remote and you're going to actually have to type it out and send it to someone, or you have less of a contact, with a Zoom avatar. I mean, it's not an avatar because it's a real person, but how does that impact the communication line?
Shara points that out as well. She said you're losing the multi-channel communication. So the richness that we talk about, 6 channels, well, the richness of being able to smell the person. You've got them, the body, the face, the everything. You can spot whether something's off. As you walk into the meeting or away from the meeting. We're on Zoom or Skype or Teams. It's bang, we're on, bang, we're off. Very little lead-in and coffee times.
And there's also, obviously, when we communicate when we're not all in the office, we communicate through Zoom. So we use Zoom Office as well. Some people use Slack and things like that, and obviously emails and text messages and those things. But as we know, those things can be lost in communication because I might say something to Cliff or to you, Harry, and I'll send a message and I mean it just because I'm just asking for clarity, and you might see it as a criticism, but it's just the way I've written it in shorthand because it's delivered, and then you obviously overlay that in your mind with a certain vocal tone and those things, and then we go down the wrong track because we don't have those extra levels. So that increase in text-based medium of communication is something that could cause problems from a remote.
Thankfully, we've got emoticons because you can put a wink on the end and let people know that you're joking, or so those help a little bit, but they're still limited, aren't they?
And not everyone uses them, to be fair.
And they can be used to manipulate as well. I've used them to manipulate the way that my message is potentially interpreted. I can be really, really angry at someone, but if I throw in a little cheeky winky face at the end, I can kind of diffuse the anger of that I might be feeling, whereas face to face I'll find it much harder, and that's probably a good thing.
That's probably easier to have that face to face.
I think so. And in some cases it's healthy for people to recognize you're angry, and messages can be misinterpreted in both ways, so people can think you're angry and you're not, or they can think you're okay and actually you're really pissed off. And it's important that can be seen. Emoticons can help a little bit in conveying how you're feeling, but they can equally be used to mask how you're feeling. And that's something that is much harder to do when you're face to face.
Yeah,
and it's just spontaneity as well, isn't it? I mean, no, I've got to read. You wanted to say something then, and I better. Should I shut up or should I put my point over? Because I've just seen your body language.
You should shut up, and then I can. No, carry on.
But spontaneity, we can read. Oh, no, should I be? But on a passive message, you've got so much thinking time, so you can be more considered in your response if you've got thinking time. And we don't often give ourselves thinking time in this forum, do we?
No.
If I ask you a question, I expect something within 7 seconds.
How very dare you, I can do it in less than that. But no, I think, but this all comes back to that adaptive leadership again, right? So it's knowing what is needed for the people within your team.
And the job at hand as well,
Yeah,
because tasks, why would you have to be in an office with a task? If we're doing task-intensive work, a lot of the time we'll have our headphones on because we're just cracking on with our stuff.
So you're in silos.
If I'm grading and you keep talking to me, that's not going to go well.
No, absolutely not.
So yeah, it is very task dependent on how much communication we need. But if you're talking project based, and we do have some big projects sometimes, then that's where collaboration is important to make sure we're 100%. All going in the same direction. We understand what those milestones of the project are. We're collaborating, all working effectively together towards that end goal. But I think that adaptive leadership is really important because the way you work, the way Jordan works, the way I work, the way Cliff works is slightly different, and we need to be sensitive to those differences in preference for work, but help people to understand that they can flex or should be able to change in their working style to try and communicate more effectively with each other, and not say, I don't work well with others, leave me alone. Well, you have to work with others. That wasn't a direct either of you two, but you have to work with others. So how do you more effectively do that? Here are some strategies from emotional intelligence or whatever it might be, or leadership and management strategies. So I think it all ties back to that adaptive leadership side. And there is a knock-on effect with that and psychological safety and well-being, because people don't have psychological safety, they can't communicate, they're not collaborating well, people are confused, they don't have clarity, mental health can suffer in those areas, burnout can be an issue, those kinds of things. Some of it comes back to that old cliche of working smarter, not harder. And I think that plays a bit into some of the things you've been looking at with regards to how long we work. So you were looking at reduced working weeks?
So the 4-day work week. But just before I move on to that, there's just a thought of whether the working from home, flexible working, all that kind of thing, whether it's a case of the path of least resistance not necessarily being the best path. So I had a grandma who really didn't like leaving the house as she got older. Despite every time she did leave the house, she'd have a really good time. But her natural instinct was to stay at home. And I wonder whether the same thing can apply to work. Because I think in some cases it did for me. There's always washing to be done. That, you can stick it in the washing machine 2 hours, it's going off and you can get some work done. So it's literally a minute to do that job. So there's a lot of ease that comes with remote working of, my parcels get delivered on time, I can do my washing, I can have the food in my fridge rather than going out and spending a fortune at the local places, all that kind of stuff. So I think it's better for me, but from a mental health perspective, if I actually think about how I feel at the end of a week working from home versus a week in the office, I'm much happier at the office, even though if on a Monday morning when I wake up and I'm a little bit hungover, someone says, would you like to work at home this week or would you like to go to the office? I might say, or I probably would say, at home, because path of least resistance. But when it's like going to the gym, once you force yourself to start doing it, you actually start realizing you feel better for it, and you just have to give yourself that little boost to get your ass out of bed and go.
And I think there's two ways of looking at that, though, I think, isn't there? So yes, when you're at home, there is that potential distractions as well. It's like, I
Yeah,
can go into the shop
100%,
or
it's
do the
easier.
washing. So it's easier to do that, and it's that comfort of being at home, deliveries and all those kind of things. But there's also the encroachment of the work-life balance. When you're working from home consistently, when do you stop? I tend to find that if I'm
That's
working
true.
from home, you don't look at the clock. So it might get to 4, 5, 6 o'clock and I'm still working. Because I'm already at home, you just kind of keep going until someone
boundaries
tells you
get
to
blurred.
stop. So that the boundaries start to blur. So I think there's two ways of looking at it. It's easier, but also can be very dangerous in that work-life balance starts to really blend and you end up just working constantly at home. And yes, your family are around you. Yes, Chantel might pop in, or Addy might pop in and say, have you finished yet? And I'll be like, yeah, I'm nearly finished. And you look at the time and it's, nearly tea time. They're already sitting at the table and I'm still working. It's like, whoa. It's because you're not having to drive back home.
Yeah.
So there's a
Well,
balance.
that's the other thing, the dead time from travelling. So I only live probably 10 miles from the office, but I can take an hour and a quarter if I'm travelling at peak times with the traffic. So in a day, that's 2.5 hours. So 2.5 hours, okay, you use podcasts and you try and make time dueling, make use of the travel time. But that's technically dead time, and it can increase your stress coming into the office. And increase your costs because you don't get your fuel paid for travelling to your place of work.
True that.
The tax doesn't allow that.
Yeah.
Well, before I interrupted you, we were getting on to the 4-day work week, which kind of ties into the flexibility of things. And this is something that is growing in popularity, mostly in Europe, a little bit in America as well, as far as can we achieve 100% of our current productivity levels with 80% of the time. And with AI, with collaboration software out there, the evidence is good that it is possible. So they've done big research studies in the UK. They've done a global study involving like UK, some European countries, America, Canada, Australia. And out of all the research they've done, 92% of the companies that trialed it, and I think collectively there was about 6,000 individuals within it and then 100 and odd companies, 92% of the companies that did it have stuck with it and continue to do it. They said they saw no effects on productivity providing all the systems were put in place. So systems was a big part of it. Rather than it being kind of time-focused productivity, it has to be task-focused. So once you make it task-focused and then you have someone who is basically chasing those tasks, making sure everything's done on time, everyone can see what's going on, everyone can see what other teams are doing, the benefits from a mental health perspective, psychological safety perspective, but also an ideas perspective. So that was the one that got me excited the most, is that they were finding people were taking this extra day, but they were still thinking about work without the distractions of the day-to-day. So it enabled the big picture thinking to occur. So on the weekend, you've got your friends, you've got your family, you've got your hobbies, and you kind of want to fully ingrain yourself in those. But they were finding this extra day where, yes, people were spending it pursuing hobbies that interest them and things like that. But they always had work churning in the back of their mind. Maybe that's because we've not fully adapted to want to appreciate that yet, and we're still a little bit in work mode. But it just meant people had this new opportunity for ideas and big picture thinking that they didn't really have the time for before, as well as being able to focus on developing new skills, spending time with the family, pursuing hobbies and all that. The research is solid, yet there's still a resistance. And is the resistance going to diminish as AI becomes more ingrained into society and work culture? Or is there always going to be that kind of old school mentality of, well, I work 9 to 5 my whole life, so now you're working 9 to 5. Like, when's that going to collide, and where is it going to ever be a thing?
So I'm going to go to Cliff in a minute because I can hear him behind me. I think this might be Harry angling for a Monday off to get over the hangovers.
I tell you what, I came in
Working Tuesday to Friday from this point on.
I came in to try and persuade us all to consider it. So I'm not convinced yet. I'm kind of convincing myself.
So is this a management
This
meeting?
is a management
I thought
meeting,
this was
a live management meeting based on.
So this is a proposal.
It's kind of
Tell you
going
what,
in that direction.
all in favour, I support it. And the reason I do support it is because, again, with 50 staff, under pressure with and being thrown into the CEO role, which I used to do, but then retired, but thrown back in. I've got 2 examples of where I know for sure that works. And this is based on the idea that the job expands to fit the time. I believe that.
Yeah.
So if you're given 3 months or 1 month to complete a project, you'll achieve it, or you might be 10% late, whichever deadline you're given.
It's like a suitcase on holiday, isn't it? Like you can have a ginormous suitcase, you will find a way to fill in it.
Exactly that. So there are exceptions. If you're employed from 10 at night to 6 in the morning to answer 999 calls, emergency calls for the police, and then someone else comes on a shift, you've got to be there for that time. So if people are getting shorter hours, instead of an 8-hour shift, you do a 6. So, that would be the compensation for people who have to be at the desk, at the phone, or whatever it is. But if you're on outcome based, so if you're on deliverables, which is what the good old days used to be like, management by objectives, rather than management by sitting your bum on a chair at a desk and make sure your car's on the car park before the chief exec and make sure it's still there when the chief exec goes home at night, otherwise you'll get fired, culture. Then the job expands to fit the time. How do I know that? I'll not mention a name, but in the organisation, one of the staff project manager came up to me. She said, we're planning children, and my partner's work won't allow it. I'm considering dropping my 5 days to 3 days. Would you support that? Of course we would. And you know what? In the 3 days, she produced as much work as she did in the 5. I felt guilty because we're paying her 60% of the salary, so the salary went pro rata. And in 3 days, there was no drop. We didn't measure it like in a research paper, but she was achieving as much as her fellow project managers, and there's about 4 of them, in 3 days that they were doing in 5, and she was getting 60% of the salary. She was happy. We were happy. The other 3 were happy. They weren't being compromised, apart from probably a little bit of pressure of how come she's doing. She's managing X projects and you're managing X projects in the time. So I'm sure some of that thought did go on. But that was number 1. Number 2, we hit COVID. Right, go home, work from home. Here's your PPE, and take this tub home and wash your hands and wash your phone. And here's some money to buy a desk and a seat that's ergonomic rather than working on your bed. So we did all that. So we put all the tools in place for them to work at home, and thanked them for it because we were forcing it. We didn't ask them, we told them. And then we had to build in a couple of strategies, but the one that relates to job expands to fit the time, there was a lot of people going, especially the old guard on the board, how can you trust that they're working? We can't see them anymore. They're walking the dog, they're taking the kids to school, they probably could be doing another job, they could be doing 3 jobs remotely. How can we trust them? So I encourage the board and the senior manager, trust. Trust, if people breach your trust, you chop their legs off. Your verbal warning, written warning. If you've done all the support and the training, if the people take the mickey, then maybe you have to help them find a job that suits their preferences. If this one doesn't suit it and they're trying to cut corners and they're letting customers down and team members down. So it wasn't a soft option, but trust until. Trust and assume 98% of the people are good people. They want to put in a good day's work. Nobody wants to turn up to put in time. Nobody wants to turn up to do a bad job. Most people, there are exceptions, but most people want to do a good job and will do what's expected of them, especially if it's output based, measure the outputs rather than clock in, clock out, which was from the industrial age. So if you've got that in place, so we set up 2 things, one to do with the time, and we said, right, you're 37.5 hours a week, that's 7.5 hours a day, take an hour break, because they used to go to cafes together and things, and that's social. Have an hour break. Go and meet some of your mates if you live locally. Have your 1 hour lunch break. Have your 15-minute morning, 15-minute afternoon. Must take your breaks, and that left us down to 8:30 till 5. I think the 8.5 hours minus an hour dinner time. So they're on 7.5 hours working per day. And then we set up this HFM, which is hour for me. So I said, it's going to be tough and you're having to adapt. So in your work time, take your hour and take another hour for you. You're not accountable to anyone for the other hour. So 7.5 hours, we only expect 6.5. 6 will do. So can you work for 6 hours? So by giving them permission to have a paid hour in addition to the hour, I believe we got 8 hours worth out of that 6 hours because it's reciprocity.
Yeah.
You know, you give, you get it back. And the job got done, and we moved over COVID from 2019 to 2021. This is evidence that Companies House, it was a £5 million turnover. The profit was £500,000, 10%. We moved in that 2 years from £500,000 profit to £1 million profit, 20%. So it moved to, we doubled the profit over 2 years, where people were, for the bulk of it, working from home.
Right.
And I think that trust and giving something from the board to them, that you get it back.
Yep.
But the other thing that and this was down to Karen, one of our operational managers. She was in charge of communications, and we give her that job, or I give her that job from on the first day. We've got to keep, when people are from home, you're in charge of keeping the oil in the cogs. So she set up almost like the donut, but what we did is there was four big teams. The 4 teams meet for half an hour every Monday, around about 10ish, after the school drops, to allow that. So 10ish, meet for half an hour, then have an half an hour break, and then half an hour later we met as a full group. We were using Skype. I think you could just get 50 people on the screen. And obviously, some people wouldn't make it, but we got the full team in. And each week, over a month, one team shared what they're up to. We didn't need to share it. We didn't have time, really. Just get on with the work, And so one team, marketing and sales, we shared, this is what we've been up to. This is what we're planning for the next month. We'll see you again in a month. And this is the support we want from you 3 teams and the management board. So this is what we want from you.
Yeah.
And so they agree what support we want, not have we delivered. By reversing that, having those, we call them huddles. Sounds a bit soft, but it was a weekly huddle, and got the group together, and that with a Friday check-in, the people were highly productive and very little mental health challenges as a fallout.
Nice. And Skype, retro.
Skype.
Very retro. I don't think does Skype still exist? I have no idea.
Teams now, isn't it?
All teams, yeah.
Microsoft owned.
But there's some evidence of this working, and one of the other things that you mentioned was that time to go subconscious as well and think about idea generation, and that extra day, and that plays into something we talk about with our MSc students. So I talk about so Guy Claxton wrote a book called Harebrained Tortoise Mind, and that's about the power of the subconscious and not trying to force answers to problems.
Yeah.
So that I've got a problem. What do I do? And we try and force all of our cognitive resources to deal with this problem and find a solution. Where sometimes a day, you're walking the dog or you're doing something, and suddenly the idea pops into your head because you've considered that yes, there is a challenge here, but I don't need to deal with it now. I've got until Wednesday next week to come up with a solution or idea. Let's just think about it and let it go, and then your subconscious will continue to process that. And it's sometimes, when you've got that day off or at the weekend or when you're sleeping, you wake up and you've got a creative idea, because creativity doesn't happen with your cognitive force. Creativity happens at that more subconscious level.
The reverse.
Yeah, so that subconscious is really important. So that just ties in a little bit with harebrained tortoise mind kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, indeed.
If we were playing devils, though, is there any reason why a 4-day work week would be a bad idea?
I think so. The job expanding and all that kind of stuff, and there'll be some people that it doesn't work with, and also if the rest of the world is still on a 5-day week and all your clients, students, and those things are on a 5-day week.
Oh, but
and
I'm
suddenly-
suggesting you have to rotate it. So you still have to have,
Customer
depending
service.
on
Yeah.
what role you're in. Like us, for instance, we just can't tell all our students, don't call us on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
So,
then
it'd always be rotated.
there'd have to be systems in place to make sure that there's no impact on customers,
Yeah.
essentially, whether that's students,
Although,
clients, whatever.
Italy,
maybe.
they take a month off in August, some organisations. So the organisation that we know, who we used to
You weren't
partner-
suggesting that all of Italy takes a month
No,
off in August,
no.
but yeah, I do know that there
But
is.
They also take 4-hour lunches, though, don't they? Really?
True. Well, it was because I'm like, when are we getting back? I was leading a train.
When I was training in Milan, it was the same thing. Yeah,
When are we getting back? It's.
I've got some content together. I've got something on. Just chill.
Cliff, you don't. I'm not going to impersonate an Italian. You don't understand. This is important and
Yeah,
fair play. It's oil in the cogs if you take a 2-hour lunch rather than quick sandwich at Greg's and get back.
yeah,
So I'm not criticising it, but it was a shock for me culturally to have 2-hour lunches when I planned to do 7 hours of content and I've only got 5.
yeah.
And to the whole organisation was closed
Yeah.
for 4 weeks, and that just blew my mind.
Yeah.
But I think we should go further than 4 days.
I don't know what's about to be proposed. Oh, the 4-hour work week.
Oh, it's a classic.
Remember Tim Ferriss?
Yeah.
And you know the secret
He
of this.
doesn't actually advocate for a 4-hour work
Yeah,
week
he
in
did.
that, though.
Yeah,
He doesn't.
no, it's
It's just a very catchy title.
he's gone full circle because Charles Handy.
Just saying, I'm not seconding this proposal.
I think we could do it 4 hours. It's the contractual core. Charles Handy used to call it a shamrock organisation, where you've got your contractual core of the spirit, the vision, the people who usually own the business at the heart. And then rather than have employees putting in time, have contractors achieving outcomes. So it's a contractual fringe, he called it. And there was Shamrock because he had 4 contractual fringe. You've got your accountants and your lawyers, you've got your subcontractors doing the production, you've got your marketing, SEO advisors and so on. But if you set that up, instead of monitoring time, you measure outcomes. When you've done this, in 2 months, can you deliver this deliverable? And by the way, after 1 month, can we have a check-in? Are you on target? Do you need support, training, resources? If you've got support, training, resources, and we agreed to 2 months was the target, so you're happy with it, I'm happy with it. 1 month report, that is the part of the 4 hours you'd have to do, rather than supervising your direct reports. So it can be done. It can be done. Let's go to 4 hours instead of 4 days.
Okay, so on that
I
note,
don't have that many hobbies.
on that bombshell, yeah, I think it's definitely an interesting one to consider. Remote working here is, it'd be interesting to know what everyone else listening to this thinks as well with regards to remote working, whether they do remote work, and or if there's some kind of flexible working. How does it work for you? What do you prefer? Be interesting to hear, and then maybe we can dive into it a little bit more. Is there anything else you want to add before we close, though?
No, just I don't think I would enjoy having both. I don't think I would enjoy having remote working and a 4-day work week. For me, like I would just schedule everything that would require me to have flexible working on that day. So like I could just, that day is dedicated to like a life admin day, which might be 50% hobbies, 50% getting my house in order. But I'd need to be in the office for the other 4 days. Like I love being in the office.
It's all right, isn't it?
It's brilliant, yeah. So yeah, I couldn't do both. I'd definitely push for a 4-day work week. Make sure the 100% productivity is being met with 80% of time with the introduction of the right tools. But yeah, I'd have to be in the office every day.
Well, that might be a preference. However, in the next 10 years, piggybacking on the artificial intelligence chats we've been having in parallel to this, work's changing, especially the routine, administrative, repetitive task, and that's being handled by ChatGPT and artificial intelligence. And if that progresses in terms of artificial general intelligence, then the prediction, if you listen to some of the Steve Bartlett podcasts and something else on AI, the workforce is going to deplete by 90%. So we only need to be working for 10%. We've got to train for leisure, and okay, we need to pay for food and houses and mortgages and things. But if that's being handled, our work week is going to be what's 10% of 40.
I'm not sure that's the way it goes, though, is it? Because it's just going to be like when we stopped coal mining over here. It's like in a very short period of time, 50% of the jobs that we were doing didn't exist. We didn't just stop working, we had to find new jobs and new things to do. And I feel like artificial intelligence is probably going to be like a modern day equivalent of that. Is 50% of jobs that AI can do will disappear in a very short period of time. And then it's, what the hell do those 50 people do? It's not going to be not work, it's going to be a type of work that I don't know exists yet.
And if we have general artificial intelligence at that point, there's a lot of things that are going to shift anyway. So
well, at that point, we're definitely not
yeah. So but no, it is an interesting one to consider, and I think it'll be interesting to hear what everyone else thinks. So that is the end of this episode, and we'll speak to everyone in the next one. Nice one.
Nice one, mate.
Cheers.